Good afternoon, class. I'm glad that you guys could all make it. I am your host and Professor Tettles. Today I'm joined by Growl, Nerf, JPC, the man, and Yoda. Welcome.
Oh, yo.
Hello, friends.
Hello, hello.
So today, what we are doing is we are creating our dream patch notes. So basically, each person is going to come up with patch notes for specific categories, and those categories are going to be class/spec balance, dungeon balance, systems, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to be awarding the head designer at GGwow. So this is a very prestigious title, very important that you take this incredibly seriously. No memes.
Of course.
Okay, some memes. I guess we start with class and spec balance. And basically this is we're looking for like season 4 stuff. And so obviously we already know that Destro, Lock, and Hunter kind of get nerfs. If you believe that they're still gonna be bullshit, I could be swayed. But Nerf, we will start with you. What do you think that needs to be buffed or nerfed in a dramatic fashion?
I think Prot Warrior needs to be buffed in a dramatic fashion. Big
Okay.
buffs. They need a lot of self-sustained help. And then nerf Blood DK.
Nerf Blood DK, but that's your main.
Whoa. I main whatever is OP.
Okay, selfless, I like that.
So yeah, I think Prot Warrior needs a buff.
Why do you think that DK needs the nerf?
Too strong. They're very tanky, and they just do a lot of single target damage.
Do you think that the damage that they're doing is out of line, or do you think it's that they're too tanky, or like what would you hit?
Well, okay. I would prefer it to not get nerfed. I would prefer Prot Warrior just to get buffed.
Okay.
But we can't always have that, right? So they always gotta nerf something. The power creep is too real. But ideally they wouldn't get nerfed. But yeah, I think their tankiness is good.
Okay.
But I think their damage is probably
It's pretty reasonable. All right, next up, JPC. What are you feeling like needs a buff and a nerf here?
Oh, I know exactly what needs a buff, and I know exactly what needs a nerf. Number one, needs the biggest buff, is this one button called Blade Flurry. Right now, when I press it, it only hits 5 things.
Okay.
It should hit 55 things. So I'm not too sure about that. That would be real nice. And one button that needs a nerf.
You could have gone with the class, but you're going with the button. I understand.
Let's go with Power Infusion. Get that out of here.
Ooh, are you trying to nerf it or are you trying to remove it?
I'm trying to remove it.
Oh,
Axe the whole thing.
I have
Yep.
a based opinion.
And then you could make it baked in with Void Form, so they auto get the haste whenever they Void Form, or I don't know, maybe like Apotheosis or something for the other specs.
You don't have to pander to Shadow Priests. We don't.
I don't think you'd be able to do it with Apotheosis because it's a talent.
Oh, whatever. Is there an equivalent for the other specs? Maybe. You don't even need to give it to the other specs.
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah.
I agree.
yeah,
Fuck 'em.
healers don't need PI. They don't need it.
All right, Yoda, you're up next. What do you want to see buffed and nerfed?
I'm with JPC. We need to uncap everything. It
Including
just doesn't make sense that I can throw a bomb. Yeah, it doesn't make sense that I can throw a bomb or a warlock and push Rain of Fire and it hits everything. But these poor rogues just push Blade Flurry and it just doesn't. Same with Fury Warrior, same with Havoc. I think Havoc is actually uncapped now, but it's like square. There's no need for all the math. Everything hits everything.
Okay, so even like trick shots and like literally everything is getting uncapped here.
Everything hits everything.
All right, I'm in.
Unless it's a single target ability or like sweeping strikes can, that's flavorful that it only hits 2, so it can be like strong and it only hits 2 or whatever.
Any nerfs or anything that you see, or are we just in the uncap everything and that's all we need?
I think they should nerf the strength of some cooldowns. Like a good example of something that's good is like Survival Hunter Coordinated Assault.
Okay.
Like you notice it. It's strong, it makes you strong, but it's not like, oh, I have Coordinated Assault, this pull's gonna get freaking annihilated. Unlike new Destro Warlock's Infernal is gonna be like that. Venthyr Moonkin would be like that if they did any damage at all. Windwalker Tiger, when they get procs, is like that. I feel like cooldowns should be toned down a bit in general.
Are some specs okay? Like, because Fire Mage is Fire Mage has always been only cooldown reliant. So are some specs okay? Or do you think it's just like too?
I think it's
too
okay
many specs?
for something like that to be in the game, but it shouldn't be like every other spec is like, oh, I have my cooldown, I'm gonna blow this back up.
Okay. I think I can see that.
And that's
Growl?
a common complaint in PvP too.
Oh yeah, dude.
Mhm.
It is a common complaint in PvP because they went from like a heavy dampening meta at the end of BFA and now they're way too cooldown focused. Okay, Growl, what are you trying to buff or nerf?
Well, we're all rooting for the underdogs, the prop warriors, the outlaw rogues. I got to give one to Mistweaver. I think they should just straight up double Mistweaver's damage.
Ooh, okay.
Mistweaver has been bad for too long. They need to just make it overpowered so that people reroll to it, and then other people realize that it's not actually that bad, and then they nerf it inevitably. But it needs some renewing mists across the spec.
Oh,
If you know what I mean.
Renew their mists. I'm gonna write that down. Okay. And anything that you see needing nerfs?
I'm not a really big nerf guy, man. I think honestly the biggest problem in the game right now, like no memes, is just like Destro and Survival being such outliers, and I think we'll see a much healthier DPS meta when those get nerfed. So I have no complaints.
Okay. We'll stay with Growl here. We're going to be looking at dungeons. And so the general philosophy behind this is like it can be like boss tuning, mob tuning. Ideally, this is going to be Season 4 focused. So if there's been some stuff that you've seen whenever we're like testing dungeons that you're like, okay, that cannot stay, now is definitely the time to call some stuff out, I think.
Ooh, Season 4 focus.
Yes.
Okay, I have one Season 3 one, even though this dungeon's going away and hopefully
I will
never
accept
returning.
one Season 3 one and one Season 4 one. We can do one of
Okay,
each.
if you have a Season 3 one. So my Season 3 take is that I think Spires of Ascension should just end after the third boss. I think that dungeon is way too long. I think the end of it isn't fun. I think the last boss is terrible. You should just kill Oriferion and then you're done. And the timer should be reduced to reflect that.
Okay.
Season 4. I feel like they're being a bit too conservative with the affix. I don't know if anyone's seen the Shrouded affix. Yeah, it does get pretty powerful by the end of the dungeon, but look, we're talking about a for fun season. We're talking about, shipping off the expansion and never, the end. I feel like they should just make Shrouded ridiculous. I think they should almost either double the amount of stats that the buff gives you or like make the buff give you something else like movement speed or something. I think the Season 4 affix is cool but not impactful enough. So I would raise that affix up.
Okay.
I don't know if that
So
counts as
Season
dungeon
3,
tuning, but-
Spires should be just, it should end after the third boss, and Season 4 Shrouded affix buffs. Did you see they nerfed the versatility buff that you get from
Yes.
Shrouded
It's
recently?
only 1% now, which I think was a great change. But it's like I would just prefer that they had made crit and haste stronger.
Oh,
I
interesting.
understand why they don't want to make it ridiculous, but
Okay.
make it ridiculous. It's the last couple months of the X-Pack. Everyone's going to be watching and hearing about Alpha and Wrath of the Lich King and all this other stuff. Let the people who are still enjoying dungeons have some fun.
Okay. JPC, as somebody who was doing dungeons as of approximately an hour ago, what are we feeling for Season 3? We'll start with Season 3 first. What are you feeling for Season 3?
So the one thing that I would wish they would fix with Season 3 is there's a specific bug with rogues in Miss Eterna Scythe. When you're going through the maze,
Oh my god.
whenever you go through a new maze door, it de-stealths you. And so, and even if you know that that's coming, and then you re-stealth and you walk forward, sometimes you get de-stealthed again randomly. So you
Okay.
could be like approaching a new pack in the maze, right? Where you're waiting for your tank to come through or whatever, and then randomly, boom, you're out of stealth. And boom, your cheats procced. You're almost dead. You're freaking out. You have no idea what's going on. And they for sure have known about this bug for, I don't even know, at least a year. Like it's been there for so long. It wasn't there actually originally in Season 1, but at some point with the new patch, it got introduced and they never fixed it. And I wish that going into Season 4 a little bit, but mostly Dragonflight, whenever there's things that really negatively affect one class, I wish that they wouldn't just brush it aside or like, oh, because I don't know how hard of a problem could it be to fix the code that keeps de-stealthing rogues. I don't know.
And
That's
so
my
and you classified getting de-stealthed on the passing through the maze as a game-breaking bug for one class.
You have no idea. Yeah, you cannot talk. Yoda knows. Yoda knows.
Oh yeah.
Like it is. You cannot talk on it unless you've played Rogue and then you've died, and you're
James?
like, yeah.
Don't
Okay.
worry. It's gonna be fixed in Dragonlands pre-patch.
Oh, lovely.
Okay.
Yep.
And so
Lovely.
your Season 4 change.
My Season 4 change, I would like for them to not redesign necessarily, but just slightly change a few of the bosses. Some of the bosses feel like extremely outdated, or
Okay.
there's a mechanic that's like extremely telegraphed, so you know it's coming, and it's just going to one-shot you 100 to 0 if you get hit by it. And if you don't get hit by it, then there's nothing else to the fight.
Can you name the
And-
bosses specifically?
Yeah, so let me. Well, I don't actually know their name. Let me.
Which
pull up,
First
dungeons?
boss of Iron Docks is like that. The
It's
frontal from the
the
dog.
the frontal from the dog, the
Okay.
charge from the third boss where he sort of charges a direction, and the hitbox is also bugged with that one. There's one boss in Upper Kara, I believe, the caster boss that it's so long as you just kick the boss, there's literally nothing going on the whole boss.
You
yeah,
haven't seen that boss in
He
its full
doesn't know.
extent.
He
He
does
doesn't
not
know.
Okay, well,
He's unaware.
yeah, and also it felt like there were some bosses when we were testing, and I mean we were playing with some pretty juiced up gamers, and we were doing plus 15s, and we couldn't kill the boss. So I mean,
Yeah.
things would be slightly different if you have higher item level, but some of the bosses just felt like, whoa, that seems kind of crazy.
Okay, so I have this listed down as Iron Docks one shots. Would you like? What else would you like me to write down on this thing?
I mean, there's one shots in Grimrail. There's one shots in. I mean, we're doing them on plus 15s, right? We're
Okay,
gonna
so
get up
one
to
shots
plus
without
30s,
counterplay. Oh, so just one shots without counterplay.
Yeah, or for example, on the third boss, also in Iron Docks, that guy bites you, right? And you have
Yes.
to do 8% of his health to stop him from biting the guy. Well, that's gonna be over 1 million health. That's gonna take a long time, and the guy's just gonna die, and it's gonna be all right,
Okay.
well, I don't know. Yeah.
Did you try a potion of unhindered passing?
Ooh.
No, although it's completely random, so you'd have to have all 5 players use their potion, then you'd just be screwed the next time.
What if you just
Or-
IQD or human ratio out of it?
Yeah. Or you drop the Holy Priest, because we don't like Power Infusion anyways, and you play Holy Paladin, and then you got a bop.
Oh gosh, now you're speaking
That-
Ellesmere's
that
language,
could be
man.
it. Yep.
Somewhere Ellesmere can feel it in his hands. Okay, Yoda, what are you feeling about for the dungeons and we can start with season 3.
Season 3, I guess one thing I like is when they like to add stuff to the dungeons that change how you play your character or change how you play. Like for example, Plague Ball is a good example, right? Like the Necrolord buffs from the slimes. I think those are good, but what I don't like is when the dungeon literally kills itself. So the Plague Boar is pre-nerf, and the way Necrotic Wake is currently, I wish
Okay.
they would tone that down big time. Maybe literally less than half the damage that it does in Necrotic Wake, and Plague Ball's fine the way it is now.
Okay, so massive nerfs to wake weapons, potentially plague borers.
So the Iron Stars and Iron Docks.
Yeah, and Toldor, that stuff's bad, and I don't know
what you're talking
what,
about.
I
Those
don't
Iron
know.
Stars are
I don't know
cool.
what the season 4 dungeons have, but I've heard some bad things.
What's your take on Junkyard? Because technically you're still playing your character, and it's enhancing your
So
character.
I like the 2 of the buffs, but the zap is kind of. I'm on the fence about the zap. I think if it just gave you main stat, I think that'd be better. But
Okay.
the zap is, I don't know.
So for season 4, we could even say just the Iron Stars and Iron Docks, kind of in a similar vein, like the Iron Stars and Iron Docks. You don't want to be getting 30% of your account without playing the actual game.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Zap bots are, I mean, it's up in the air.
Oh, I was also gonna say the Menagerie boss in Streets only needs 1 RP, man.
Okay. I agree with that. All right. Nerf. What are we feeling about dungeons?
I think they should remove all RP from dungeons. Not even with just 1 RP for
Ooh,
this.
good take.
Just all RP.
That is a based
I
opinion.
I mean, yeah, that would be the best, but I
I
would never
agree.
do that.
That
I know.
boss, the streets boss, that boss should just be there, just be sitting there, and then, probably going forward, remove the move speed reduction in the market when in streets when you're doing the little thing. We're not gonna have WoW anymore, right? So I think it's just
Oh my
gonna be
God.
annoying.
Oh my
I
gosh,
think it's
you're
just
right.
gonna be annoying just with the move speed reduction. There's no reason for it.
Okay.
And then in season 4, remove Grimrail Depot and the Iron Docks and put in 2 other dungeons.
Oh.
I think those dungeons are awful and they shouldn't be in.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, we need
probably
freehold.
probably give a little nerf to Moros' bleed in Lower Karazhan. I mean, everybody's gonna be playing dwarf or whatever anyway, but for not everybody, but for the guys that that are farming their portals or something, Moros will probably be a little bit hard with the bleed.
Dude, it was
Um,
whenever we tested it too, killing those ads that were next to him, his henchmen, was brutally
Yeah.
hard. Oh my gosh.
Obviously they still probably have to do some tuning. They're
Yeah.
running out of time, but there's some tuning to be done. That guy probably needs a little bit of a nerf.
Seems pretty reasonable to me. Okie dokie. We got systems. So major changes to system. This could be affix based. This could be like currency based. It's less necessarily to do with gameplay, more due to like the game itself. Of course, we had the cosmic flux being account wide recently. That was a good change. We'll start with Yoda. What would you like to see change with the systems of the game?
I would like to see Mythic Plus, Raid, and PvP more split in terms of the gear that you need to get from like the other things. Like they've done a good job with PvP where like you get PvP gear and it's stronger in PvP, and basically PvPers just get their own gear. They don't need a raid. We don't need a PvP. But that same crossover is like we have the opposite of that in Raid and Mythic Plus. Like Mythic Plusers have to Raid and Raiders have to Mythic Plus. And while there is like some people like doing both, most people I've found like either hate Raid or hate Mythic Plus. They just do the other one to get gear. And with how hard the raid is, it's been really annoying for this season for a lot of people. And I wish they would make it so you don't have to do that. Either like maybe Mythic Plus dungeon Valor upgrades to Mythic level after a higher score, or just literally make the gear only scale up in Mythic Plus. That's one way to do it too.
So kind of similar to what they do in PvP, where they have like the effects on them, where like it just
or they could
increases the item level.
You could also cap the item level in Mythic Plus. That would also work.
Interesting. Okay. So what I have written down for that is Mythic Plus, Raid, and PvP gearing needs to be split more. PvP is split enough, but Mythic Plus and Raid still needs to have a bigger disparity. All right, Nerf. How you feeling about systems?
I mean, kind of with loot. I wish there was some more deterministic loot. Like I'll probably go this whole tier without looting a Mythic Gavel,
Okay.
and I'll kill the jailer like I don't know 8 times maybe. Like between killing the jailer 8 times and then the vaults, and not getting a Mythic Gavel, I think is I don't know really bad. Like I think if you kill the boss like 3 times, like any boss you kill 3 times or something, like you should be able to like buy a piece of loot from that boss.
How do you feel about what they're adding in season 4 with the deterministic
I think it's
loot?
not enough. I think it's not enough, and I think it takes too long still.
Okay.
Like you get 3 items. I'm sure you can buy like an item from like the last boss without having to kill the last boss. And like the upgrades, like it makes sense, but I think you're only limited to 3 items. Since they're trying to ramp up, like they hired a whole new studio, right, to help like them ramp up content. Like if we're assuming patches are to be shorter, like we should be able to get gear faster in those patches.
That actually makes sense. Would you change the vault then to be the way to get that loot, or would you do something a little bit different?
Yeah, I think like the coins that we get from the vault, I think like should be like the currency that we get to like buy a piece instead. Like if we don't loot anything from the vault, like an item, I think the vault is great, but like the coins are kind of useless. Like sure you get a socket, but like if you don't loot anything, I think the coins should be used to like buy a piece that you need eventually or something.
Okay. I think that seems reasonable to me. Growl, how are you feeling about the systems here?
You know, I think the systems right now are good. I think the systems in Dragonlands look pretty good too. Like it doesn't seem like they're doing anything super convoluted. So I have to go back and talk about loot too. You know, maybe just because we're Mythic Plusers. And I have a similar idea in the veins of Yoda and Nerf, but you know, I'm gonna try and make a lot more people angry with my idea.
Okay.
I think that loot should just cap at heroic item level and plus 15 item level. And just similar to how doing Mythic plus 15, like going above that is only for cosmetics and titles and stuff, I think that is how Mythic Raid should be too. I think if you want to max out your character, I think someone who is a little bit more casual and who doesn't want to like be a part of a Mythic Raid guild should be able to do that without having to just like wait for their vault to drip feed them loot. And I think if you don't want to raid but you want to experience the high level of other forms of the game, I think you should be able to do that too. So I think they should just look, gear isn't that special in this game anyway. You know, they should just make it so all the best gear drops from heroic raid, all the best gear drops from plus 15s. No need for any tokens, no need for anything. You just do the heroic raid. If you want to go higher, you do it for fun, but if you don't want to, then you don't have to.
Okay, so loot should cap at heroic item level. Gear isn't that special. You should have the gear dropping at a lower base level, and the content should be the main focus. Is that about right?
Yep. I mean, that in my opinion, that's what retail WoW is already. It's just like really convoluted and like they try and make it about the gear a little bit, and then they sort of add these items like Nerf is talking about Mythic Gavel, where the power level increase that you get from this item is so crazy that it makes you want to go into the raid, but at the same point, it's like almost too crazy for the fact that you have to be a part of a guild and you have to be doing all this mythic stuff and you have to be lucky to get it, and it's just like I'm okay with like small power gains. Like I'm actually hard cool with like, you know, adding like, oh, if you do mythic raid or like high stuff, you can add like leech or avoidance or like maybe a little bit of item level, but having like super strong items like mythic gavel and like 285 tier be gated behind mythic raiding, I think is a little frustrating for like 98% of the player base.
9.8.
All right, JPC. Which systems are oppressing Rogue and why do they need to be changed immediately?
Okay, I'm gonna go for a slightly more generalized take here.
You're not just gonna talk about Outlaw. You're gonna talk about all Rogue specs.
Yeah, okay. My biggest gripe, although it's not an original JPC idea, but is with the affix system. I really like Dorky's idea for the affix system, in that there should be some beneficial component to the affixes. They should be mostly beneficial. I think what it really gets down to is like you should want to approach the affix. Like you should want to engage with the affix. It should never be like, oh, like I don't want to play the game.
Okay.
Like I don't know if there's any other game that is appealing and has a large player base where a large portion of their player base regularly says, I hate this game and I don't want to play for this entire week. Like I don't know if there's any other, especially with like a rotating system where you can just flip a switch and you have bursting storming and it's extremely fun to play with your friends and you're having a great time. And then they put it on Spiteful Necrotic and you can't find a single melee player or a tank player. And it's just like, there's so much opportunity there. And it's just, I don't know, like it would feel really bad to go a whole nother expansion with this whole thing of like, oh, well, I don't want to play this week, so I guess I'll see you guys next week.
Interesting. So you're not even talking about Kiss Curse. You're just saying that affixes should positively benefit you, kind of.
Well, you can have the Kiss Curse element, or just something that requires you to sort of use your skill or knowledge of the game to deal with them, such as like, I don't know, handling Sanguine or handling bolstering, etc. I think an element of that is fine, but it should feel like much more pro than con.
Okay.
Like you could add the benefit to the existing affixes and still also make that existing affixes weaker. Like I feel like Spiteful one-shotting players is really bad. You could like reduce the percentage amount healed by Sanguine. You could like there's all kinds of things.
Oh, make them less punishing just as a general rule to where there is still something to play around, but just like
and also incorporate the dorky thing where like let's say you're the tank and you get 20 stacks in necrotic and then it falls off, okay, you get a 20% damage increase.
Okay.
Or if you have the Sanguine thing, like where it's like a red puddle for a while, which heals, and then it turns into a black puddle, which deals damage. Or, you have like the Spiteful thing, and maybe every time you kill a Spiteful, you gain 3% damage done, and it stacks. Or something like that.
How have you been feeling about seasonal affixes this expansion? So we had Prideful, Tormented, and now Encrypted, and then we're going to have the next seasonal affix, Shrouded, where it's like all of them are kind of Kiss Curse, right?
Sort of, yeah. So I liked Prideful to an extent. Like, I feel like the dream situation for Prideful is that you pull a pack, which gets you over a 20% increment. This Prideful spawns, and then you're like fighting mobs while doing the Prideful. And then you have to like skillfully dodge, but it doesn't make it so impossible that you like can't play the game. But probably if you get hit by the Prideful shot, like you're going to get stunned and then you're going to die. But there is an outplay. But it gets to the point where you can't do anything besides just doing the Prideful. And like that becomes the whole focus. Same with the season 2 affix. Like it just gets so punishing where you can't really have fun with it. But I feel like the season 3 affix, this Encrypted, I think is awesome. Like it's so fun. And you're always picking which one you want. And it like addresses a lot of other problems like movement speed and dependence on Shroud and like healer mana. Like you're just never sitting around waiting. It like rewards you for, it's pretty easy to dodge. You can play with a lot of trash. If you have good priority damage, you pick the right one as a team, you get rewarded. So I
have a take on that. I think the seasonal affix should always give you something that lets you move throughout the dungeon quickly. So if you look at like the affixes that people loved, it's this one and season 4 BFA. People love that one
Awakened,
too.
yeah.
I think something that lets you change your pathing and makes your pathing faster is really good as a seasonal affix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
definitely
also
agree.
thinking with Shrouded, which is the new upcoming seasonal affix. I don't see a good reason why they can't just tack on like 3% movement speed per stack, so you're cruising, or they could even
Per
give you,
stack.
they could even give you an extra on use action button, and based on how many stacks you have, it like increased your movement speed, and then the more stacks you have, you could have like basically like rocket boots and like 2 minute cooldown or something,
Not
or. And we like when I say 3% move speed per stack, like your initial reaction is, "Oh my god, that's like way too much move speed. Like that could be too easy for players." But like, you should want to have fun when you play the game. Like it shouldn't be like you should want to be OP. You should want to do like a fuck ton of damage. You should want to like be really cool. And you've got this cool seasonal affix, and then it's just like, oh, all right,
sure.
1% versatility.
I think
Yeah.
it seems pretty reasonable.
I think the season 4 seasonal affix is boring.
It
Yeah.
definitely. I think it's boring, but I don't think it's bad.
Well, okay, I need to like rein in the everything should be fun. I know people don't want to hear it, but so the two things I think are, number one, season 4, I think the reason it's boring is because it's like a short season with all these random dungeons that people don't remember, and I don't think they want to put something crazy in there. Like I think they're definitely making it simple on purpose. And like I think we should just put our energy towards like thinking about what the Dragonflight affix should be and like worrying about that, because I mean season 4 is just like meant to be a for fun thing.
Okay.
And another thing I want to add is, while prideful and tormented, like a lot of what was boring about some of these affixes was there's like, you're just single targeting this guy. The problem is you have this season where, well, what happened? Survival Hunter and Industrial Lock are just like blatantly OP, and like you just take 2 mega AoE blasters in every team, right? But like part of what made prideful not interesting, but like it sort of in a weird way helps like class balance, because it makes single target more important in dungeons, and I think they definitely did that on purpose when they did Awakened, and then they did Prideful, and then they did Tormented. It really felt like they were purposefully trying to put more single targeting into dungeons, and I think they sort of just like gave up on that and like did something for fun this season. And again, this season is like a lot more fun, but also keep in mind it throws off balance. Like I think we can agree that this was the most fun season and also the least balanced season in terms of DPS.
Well,
so,
I think
I mean,
it
it's
also.
just like something you just have to consider when we do affixes like this.
That's probably fair. I think it also helps that we like know the dungeons as well, and like I think if you're trying to learn the dungeons with like a very intricate affix, I mean, I think it just becomes really hard.
Well, like part of the boring part for me is like, if the best way to deal with a seasonal affix is just ignore it. Like
Okay.
Prideful, you just invis it, or like Tormented, obviously you skip it, and then but you have to deal with a debuff on the last boss. Like, and like the new one, you could just skip you could just know which packs have the guys in it, and then just not do them. And like if you don't want to do them, and then because there's nothing comes back to you on the last boss, right? And of the new one.
Yeah.
So like I think it's just the best way is to handle the seasonal affix is to avoid it. I think it's not.
Yeah.
It's not good enough if you have to avoid it for sure.
I mean, that gets back to like the larger thing of just like the whole affix system in general. And my thing was like, you should want to do the affixes. It's the same thing with the seasonal affix. Like, I feel like every season except for this season, you almost strictly never wanted to do any of the seasonal affixes, pretty much. And this season, there are a lot of times when you're like, oh, lovely, we get this, we get a woe here, we get a here. And I have a bad feeling that next season it's gonna be a lot like that. It's gonna be like, oh, where's the big mini boss? Let's not pull that pack, so we don't have to deal with that, which would be unfortunate.
Yeah,
Or just
big
sort of a
mini
missed
boss is, like,
opportunity.
yeah, it kind of feels bad when it's like the mini boss is like that's the guy that gives you the 3 stacks or whatever, and he's the guy that you want to avoid because he's too tough. Like it should almost be the opposite, where it's like, oh, let's find this guy and hurry up and get him because like we'll juice up. But instead, it's like, oh, where's this guy? And we're like trying to do this crazy like Shroud Warlock Gateway and
Yeah,
Grimrail
yeah.
Depot to get by the guy that they don't want us to get by, and it's just like,
Mm-hmm. So as a whole, I'm just gonna read off what we have. Nerf, his take on class balance. Buff Prot Warrior Nerf DK for season 3. Wanted no RP in dungeons. Remove move speed reduction in streets. And then for season 4, removing Grimrail and Iron Docks and replacing them with 2 different dungeons instead. And then a slight nerf to the Moros Bleed. And then for systems, it was more systems for deterministic loot. The season 4 stuff that we're getting is not going to be enough, so there needs to be like a higher level change coming in the next expansion potentially. For JPC, we had class balance, blade flurry buffs. It should hit 55 targets. For nerfs, we have removal of power infusion. For dungeons, we had season 3. We need to fix the rogue de-stealth bug in Mists of Tyrannus Scythe.
Oh, yeah.
For season 4, look at the one-shots without counterplay. Iron Docks and Grimriel Depot were notable, but just generally one-shots without counterplay should definitely be a bit more... Blizzard should be a bit more heavy-handed with nerfing those. And then for systems, major affix system changes. Affixes should be mostly beneficial. They should feel much more pro than con. I don't think I can really summarize that conversation that well outside of that, but that's how I wrote it. For Yoda, we have a class balance, uncap all specs, and then nerf offensive cooldowns. Not all of them straight across the board, but just make them a little bit less oppressive. For dungeons, it was season 3, massive nerfs to necrotic wake weapons and potential plague borers, and then the menagerie boss in streets only needs 1 set of RP. And then for season 4, Iron Stars / shock bots, kind of in a similar vein, like the things that play the dungeon for you need to really heavily be looked at, kind of Toldagor cannons, all of that kind of stuff, even though Toldagor's not coming back. Then for systems, we had Mythic Plus, Raid, and PvP gear needs to be split more. But like Mythic Plus and Raid notably need to have a larger disparity. I think that seems pretty reasonable. Then for Growl, the class balance, Mistweaver needs to renew their mists, and their DPS needs to be a lot higher. No nerfs. So I think is a hot take, but I respect it. For Dungeons, Season 3, Spire should end after the 3rd boss, and in Season 4, the Shrouded Affix buffs should make it ridiculous. And then for Systems, loot should cap at Heroic item level, gear isn't that special, and you should have gear dropping at a lower base level, and then content should be the main focus. Does anybody want to change anything?
What do you think needs to be nerfed? You said it's a hot take that there are no nerfs.
I think that a lot of people cry for buffs and nerfs very frequently in the gaming space, just in general. I just think it's a hot take. I don't necessarily have anything that's pressing in my mind that I'm like, oh, this needs to be buffed or nerfed.
You don't think Moonkins need to be buffed?
Oh, wow.
I think that...
All right, that wraps up this conversation.
I think that Blizzard's tuning philosophy
Thanks
is
for joining us, guys.
not the one I'd hope for. Anyways, I have to award... What did we call this award again? The very prestigious head designer at GGwow. By popular demand, I'm going to be awarding it to Nerf.
Does it come with like a gift card to McDonald's or something?
Red Lobster. So
okay.
you get a $15
Ooh.
Red Lobster gift card. It's good for 0.8% of people, like 0.8 of a person, I think. You can get some nice rolls. In the meantime, we're gonna be back with another video at some point soon. So I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Congratulations, Nerf, again. And thank you guys for joining me and facilitating this great discussion I think we had today.
GG's.
GG's.